Okay. Hi, Stacey. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. Nice to see you. Nice to have you with us. As we were just talking about before we got on, you said that you are a piano player. Yeah?
Yes. Oh my goodness, I totally am. I started when I was 4, as you know, I had Asian parents. They started all of us at age 4. And it was just like an essential part of my upbringing, playing piano. Yeah, and I discovered I had perfect pitch. My sisters and I both did. My sisters and I. So that was awesome to be able to play by ear. Do you play by ear too,
Yeah,
Douglas?
primarily. Yeah.
It's quite a blessing, but I've noticed that in my older ages now, I'm a half a step sharp. Didn't used to be like that.
I've actually had to drop a couple of my songs that I wrote when I was in my teens because I can't sing that high anymore. So,
Ah, but you mentioned Elton John. I finally got to see him in concert
oh, yeah,
um,
great show.
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He's still going strong. I mean, for his age,
Definitely.
because he's, I think, 15 years older than me. And
Mm.
he was one of my big inspirations when I was a kid.
To see his fingers move like that, it's just inspirational.
When you were growing up, then you were sort of forced to have piano lessons. Did you like it as a kid, or did you kind of, oh, do I have to do this?
Yeah, good question. I didn't like it. I had a timer that my mom would set for the 2 hours. We had to practice for 2 hour intervals and she would set it and I would always try to move forward a little. But I definitely appreciated it after having learned it and after getting some mastery of it. I think that's when the fun begins. And now it would be a luxury to be able to play, like to have time to play. But I'm totally glad that she forced us to do it. Maybe not 2 hours. 2 hours is kind of long.
Well, it is, but sometimes it takes that much just to get your chops and your muscular memory. I've
Yes.
certainly sat at the piano for a lot longer than 2 hours when I was trying to figure something out. But
Oh, yeah.
were you,
Yeah. If you're into it, it just
yeah,
goes, right?
was it classical music that she was?
Classical music. It
Yep.
was classical music, but and funny, I didn't know about the jazz style, and I would have loved learning that.
Well, it's different, but it's similar because classical music is very formatted. Okay,
Yeah.
it's very rigid. It's very here it is, and you don't deviate from it that much. Jazz is completely the opposite. Jazz is like freestyle.
Yeah, I would have loved to learn that. Is that what you do?
Well, I can play jazz, yeah. Classical, I'm not as good at just because I don't read music that well. I
Okay.
think classical music, you need to learn to read music and
It's very
yeah,
technical. Yes.
and understand music theory and all that, which I was never any good at.
Well, my sister, the younger sister, like I told you, we all played piano, and now she lives in New York and decided that she's gonna start a band. And so she learned the bass guitar of all things. A piano is a little too hard to fit in their New York apartment. So she learned the bass guitar and she there are a lot of New Yorker parents who are musically talented and so they all formed a band and she was telling me how interesting it is, how different it is to play with real musicians who can just seamlessly okay let's go for it, let's start with a D, let's transpose this by another like we need a higher scale here, so they just like seamlessly change from one to another and they never read music. That was kind of a crazy to me. They don't read music, you don't have music up there, but no, musicians don't have music on stage when they're playing in their rock bands. No, no music.
Typically not, but classical musicians typically do. So
Do need music.
that's
Yeah,
sort of the difference. The interpretation is not left up to the musician, it's left up to the conductor.
absolutely.
Yeah, and they follow him. So,
Hmm.
let's get to your book because I know that's why you're here. As much as I
Yes,
would
we should
love
talk
to
about that.
spend 2 hours talking about music with you, we should get to your book. So your book is called Winston Chu
Two
versus the
versus.
Whimsies, And this is a series, is that correct?
It's 2 books, and I just finished the sequel. So 2 books.
So, and all of these are children's books, right?
Yes, yes. Middle school, 8 years and up. And I definitely can tell you that I have readers that are in their 90s. So I say eight up, but good readers. I've had 7-year-olds read it too. So I don't know. If you like a good story, this might be for you.
Well, why did you decide to write children's books? It says on your bio that you were a lawyer, or are a lawyer by trade, right?
Yeah, I was a lawyer just because I didn't think I was a writer growing. I was writing ever since I could hold a pencil, to be honest. I just loved writing. But I never saw Asian people in books, and I did not think that was something that we could do because I never saw Asian people in books and I never saw Asian names on, by an Asian person. I never saw that. So I internalized that. And I think I really didn't believe that I could do that as a living. And neither did my parents. No way. No way. They did not want me to go into writing. Um, they had they had different ideas. They wanted me to go into a career that I could support myself on. And I can't blame them. So I can't blame them at all now that I have kids. I'm very worried for my kids and making sure that they have ways to support themselves. And writing wasn't how you did it as an Asian American growing up. So I was a lawyer. I got a real job, and I was a lawyer for about 10 years. I worked in-house at a technology company here in the Silicon Valley, and I thought it was a good career. It wasn't the career that I wanted to be in. I think it wasn't a natural fit for me. I'm definitely someone who loves creating harmony. And as a lawyer, you're an advocate for your client. So maybe that wasn't the best fit for me. But I always did enjoy the analysis part. I love analyzing things. And I think the creative side of it finally came out when I finally had kids and thought, oh, I need to do something for them so that they can see themselves on bookshelves too. So I spent a summer and I created my first book, which was Under a Painted Sky. It's a historical fiction. And after that, got that book published. I mean, it wasn't an easy process because that book was about a Chinese girl on the Oregon Trail, disguised as a cowboy. And that was a very different kind of subject or characters that publishing was used to seeing. So that was kind of an uphill battle to get that published. But since then, this Winston Chu versus the Whimsies is my 6th book, and another one next year.
Well, that's great. Now, who are the Whimsies?
The Whimsies are magical creations. They are made through a giant popcorn machine, and they're made using a combination of the affection energy that is in each item. For example, this necklace was given to me by my husband. It has a lot of affection, crossed with another item like a Pokemon character or a toothbrush or something like this. So the antagonist creates these whimsies, magical items in his store, and my main character, gets to choose one. The first thing he touches is the first thing he brings home. And he's got this whole warehouse full of magical things he could choose from. But since he's a kid with impulse control, what does he end up choosing? What does he end up touching? Is this old broomstick, and it comes with a free dustpan. So that's what he ends up bringing home. And then chaos ensues when they start taking his stuff, including his baby sister.
Interesting. Is this Harry Potter-ish?
Yeah, I guess in that it has fun, magical items that may be unexpected. For sure, it's meant to intrigue the imagination. There's flying in it. There's all sorts of fun things that you don't expect. There's a pair of kick-me boots that follow you around and kick you. Yeah. But you don't want those on your tail.
So how long did you work as a lawyer before you gave it up, or did you give it up?
I still pay my dues, Douglas. So I
Oh,
guess I
okay.
didn't give it up, but I was working for about 10 years before I retired, got married and had kids.
And started writing.
And I was writing
Or
the
you
whole
were
time,
writing?
say dedicating myself to getting a book published. I think, yeah, I spent, I would say, my childhood, teenage years, law school, all those years, I was creating stuff. It just was being rejected, was being rejected for about the same reason, which was, we don't think there's a market for this. We don't think this is sellable. This is not a market. But I finally spoke to an editor about what that means. What market? What is the market that they don't think there's a market for? And she told me that the principal audience for Asian American books are Asian Americans, which I disagree with, but okay. And she thinks that Asian Americans don't buy books, which I accepted at the time because I didn't know. Well, I don't know anything. And I accepted that. But looking back, I mean, it could be that Asian Americans didn't buy books because there just weren't any written for them.
Something you said was interesting. I want to go back to when you said, well, I'd been writing all along. But the transition is from being writing all along to being a writer.
Yeah.
That's the transition.
Yeah, being able to really support myself on my writing income was a huge moment for me, and it was because it finally represented that. For a long time, my parents were really concerned that being a writer just wasn't going to be a sustainable living for you, and to finally say, look, you can follow your passion and you can make a living doing it, was a big moment for me. I mean, I know that is definitely not something that everybody can do. And so it was very extraordinary for me to be able to finally say, okay, look, I can do this. I can do this by doing the thing that I love.
Well, I think you're doing all right because I see New York Times #1 bestseller. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And Winston Chu versus the Whimsies is the latest book. It is out now?
Yes.
Okay. We do have to wind this down. We just kind of blew right through our 15 minutes. But
Okay.
thank you so much for coming on. It was nice
Thank you
talking
so
to
much
you.
for having me. It was a joy talking to you.
Well, last question, or second to the last question. Is there going to be more in this series coming?
Yes, there is a book coming next year called Winston Chu versus the Wingmeisters. It's also set in San Francisco. There's a lot more birds. Winston Chu is going to get into a lot more trouble. And we see glimpses of Treasure Island, which is a part of San Francisco. It's a man-made island set right in the middle of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. And it used to be a very magical place when it held the World Fair there back in 1939.
And then the last question is, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure. It's staceyhlee.com. And for social media, I'm at Stacey Lee Author.
Okay, great. Well, Stacey, it was nice meeting you. Nice having you on this show. Best of luck with your books. And
Thanks so
I look
much.
forward to the next one coming out.
Thank you. I appreciate that.